You know what? So I just realized that because I'm making this podcast, and because this literally just boom, this is my own private and personal big boom, right? I get to do whatever the heck I want to do right now. So actually, I'm gonna light this little blunt, and that's what this show is gonna be. Okay, this show is gonna be me smoking and sharing information, and I hope maybe y'all could join me, with whatever you tend to commune with while you're thinking your deepest. Today, for my first episode, I've decided that I wanted to talk about God. What God is, who God is, where God comes from, and a little bit about what that has to do with us. I think what that has to do with us is extremely deep thing to even talk about in the first place. So it has to be kind of a separate episode. Yes, my name is Bayano. Welcome to Finding Atem. This isn't going to be the introduction video. I'm going to drop this video first. I think this in of itself is an introduction to what you're going to see from me, but altogether, it's not the official introduction. I'll have like a episode 0 that I'll create later. I just want to get this out because I definitely want to define what God means to me and how I've grown to understand it. So, without further ado, let's get on with the topic. First, I want to explain to you what Atem is. When we talk about who Atem is, he is the Most High. They are the Most High. Atem is the Most High Spirit, the Spirit that is in all. Atem is all. Atem is all that exists, as in there is no other spirit. It is the only spirit. Atem is the one God. And it's funny because in science they call it an atom. So don't be confused and thinking that, oh no, they just sound alike. No, this is the exact same understanding. If you were to break down all matter and get to the very bottom of everything, you'd see it to be that everything is an atom. Off of the basis of how the ancient Egyptians see it, all that you see in the physical is actually a bit of an illusion in regards to what is actually real. All things that you see also have a spiritual or invisible side to it, and science has confirmed that as well. But that is what Atem is. Atem is in everything. Once you truly understand Atem, you get to the bottom of understanding yourself. When you get to the bottom of understanding yourself, you truly get to understand Atem. It's one and the same. In order for me to explain to you how parallel that perspective is, I want to explain the creation story of Atem. So, at the beginning of all things, before Atem was even created, there was just Nu. Now, what Nu is, if I were to describe what Nu is, I'd essentially be describing how hell was described. It was just screaming, chaos, pain. It sounds just like the abyss of just a mosh pit of pain. Right, that is the Nu. And the Most High Atem was amongst the Nu, was in the Nu, was the Nu, one and the same. But then the Most High simultaneously becoming aware of themselves and spoke Atem, and him speaking it set off a huge boom. And that huge boom now is scientifically understood as the Big Bang. And that big boom created a large light in the abyss of darkness. That is the creation of Atem. He created himself, and from that point on has been creating. In the ancient Egyptian story, they name it as him creating his son Shu and daughter Neftu, and they worked together to create order in Nu. Funny enough, it is named that God is in love with his ideas of beauty and greatness, right? Ideas and creations, because we all live in the mind of the Most High, and so all that he creates is inside of his mind. Which I'm going to get to that, but I'm just kind of giving you a little tidbit. He's in love with his ideas of beauty and greatness. So my guess is that his son Shu is greatness and his daughter Tefnut is beauty. And because of them, along with the powers of the Most High, they worked to expand the light by creating order and Nu. So you expand God's light by expanding ideas of beauty and greatness. There's a story where Shu and Tefnut are out battling the darkness and trying to teach people through beauty and showing of greatness that they were gone from the Most High for too long. He started to get sad. So what he did was he sent out his eye, Ra, to go find his daughter and his son. But Ra did find Shu and Tefnut and brought them back. But once Ra came back with Shu and Tefnut and the Most High cried tears of happiness, Ra looked, because Ra was like, I'm the eye, so who is this eye you crying these tears from? And that eye, God created in his place while he was gone. Ra kind of got a little frictive about it. So what God did was said, okay, Ra, you will rule over all of my creation, and you will become the sun. And then he looked at the eye that he created in Ra's place and said, your name is Yah, and you will be the moon. And as Yah, you will rule over and watch over alongside Ra. And then they also created Geb, the earth, and Nut, the sky. And that's like their origin story for the creation of Ra and his first few children, which are called the Anid, the initial council of God's creations. So how would you explain God from that? You see that essentially he is self-made, and he made himself strictly and purely out of awareness. And through beauty and greatness, he expands by making more of the chaotic aware, essentially. That is the awakening, is opening their eyes so that they may see the light and become more aware of themselves. But let's really get into what it means, because Atem is everything. All that is ever created. That means that Shu is still Atem. Tefnut is still Atem. Ra is Atem. All of them are Atem. Yah, Geb, Nut, they're all Atem. So what does that mean? Here are some of the different ways to describe Atem. So Atem is the creator. He is all that creates. Everything that is created is his creation. When you create, you are co-creating with the Most High, because all creations are his creation. He is the eternal and universal Father, especially when you understand from a spiritual mindset. All creations are kind of like babies. They are first inseminated as the thought, and then they're incubated. It takes time to prep the physical and, just other aspects of something being materialized. And then they are birthed. That's the big boom. That is that first time that it is truly materialized, because you were prepping for the materialization of that baby. Materialized at its birth. Wink, wink. That is truly when the blessing has blessed you. You know what I'm saying? So when you understand that all of your creations kind of go through that same cycle of birth, because birth in of itself is its own cycle, because everybody is Atem. When you create, you also are the father of all of your creations, and because you are the Most High, or the parent, right? You are the parent of all of your creations, therefore the Most High is the parent of all creations. He is the Most High root, the supreme mind. Your mind is the same mind as the Most High mind. In fact, we are in the Most High mind. And because the Most High only knows a mind that is of his own kind, he can only manifest a mind that is a reflection of his. You understand the Most High as oneness. So especially when you are talking about numerology, when we are naming the number 1, that is the God number. Because just like the number 1, God is the root of all other numbers. 6 is only 6 because you're adding up 6 different ones. You know what I'm saying? It's important to also understand it in the way, because I brought up that's the root of all other numbers, but the truth is that God is one in the way that so is the sun. The sun is one, right? The earth is one. It's not that the sun was around longer and that's why it got as big as it did, therefore it's greater than Ra. Is not greater than Yah just because it's bigger. They just have different placements. So you can't think that this God is better than that God, or just because a particular situation might have weighed out a particular way, that means that this God is a greater God. No. And that same thing applies to everyday life. There's no one out here that's bigger or better than you, and you are not bigger than better than anybody else. And I think when it comes to universal balance, that's best. I can appreciate that. So God is one, you are one, Everything is in its own image. Everything is one and the same. You can look to other people's experiences and you can find solution to yours in the same way that you can look to God's experiences and find solution to yours, because we're all one and the same in the way that we all go back to God. God goes by all names. Understand that anything and everything that is materialized is something that is made up of the God particle, therefore it is God. So that fence is God. Trees, that's God. And in that same very sense, those chemicals that were man-made is also God, because man is God. Therefore, what man creates is God, because God is the eternal Father. Because God is everything, he is going to be paradoxical in nature regardless. He is immaculate, incorruptible, everlasting spirit in that exact sense. Paradoxical in the way that he is simultaneously paradoxical and also immaculate, incorruptible, everlasting spirit. And I'm going to get into why in a little bit. But he is also understood to be the supreme reality. I'm going to go back to what I was saying earlier about that. It is understood in ancient Egyptian wisdom that what you see in the physical is a mere illusion. And even in their stories, furthermore, about creation, humans became physical beings later on because we didn't feel like we can do enough as just invisible spirits. So we asked God to be materialized, and so he did. So the material world was an afterthought and was only meant to be able to get certain things done that just couldn't get done in the higher dimension. The material world came afterward, and it had to be further limited than what the limitations already were. There is an aspect to perspective that is warped in the physical realm compared to the spiritual realm. And because Atem existed spiritually first too, then it is when you pay attention and you just stay in the direction of your purpose that was named at creation, and you don't get caught up in perspective, because you are stuck in the physical, which lacks a lot of perspective because of the lower dimension. Just mathematically, we lack a perspective when we lower a dimension. You get caught up in that, then you get caught up in the physical, then you lose the light and you get stuck in Nu, or the abyss of darkness. It is the original, the most basic, the most sacred, the most applicable, the most adaptable nature and reality and understanding to keep. It's that when you stay in the direction of the Most High, you stay in the direction of reality, clarity, and direction towards your goals. And I want to emphasize one last thing about a description of God. It is that God is one. And I keep saying this, right? And there are two different reasons why I'm going to bring this up, actually. So two last things I want to talk about. So the second to last thing is that when you hear about different gods doing this and that and this and that, it's not about seeing this God, thinking that God is super duper cool, and then deciding that's the God you're going to be hanging with. And I think once we really step out of doing that with our deities, we'll learn to stop doing that with our friends. Anyways, when you understand that these stories, these tales, these understandings are coming from a perspective of a God, you have to understand that is the Most High speaking through a person's experience and perspective to teach a lesson. It is not to praise that person and admire them into idolizing them. There's no need to idolize anybody, because you are one just the same. So when you hear about a God doing this, when you hear about a God winning, or a God losing, or a God being envious and so therefore battling, it's not about whether or not that God is now a bad God. It's about the way that particular manifestation of the Most High chose to position itself in a particular moment or conflict ended in this way, because this, and there's usually a lesson, there's usually something to be spoken about wisdom wise, and sometimes it's just like another tool for communication and like divination and such, but what's the difference? The last thing that I wanted to say is when you pick up the tarot card, because I think I'm gonna kind of reference the tarot cards every once in a while, and you pick up the number 1 magician card. That is a great way to see Atem. not because Atem is a white man with red hair. I think that's what that card. I mean, it really depends on what deck you got. Anyways, when you look at it, it's not because God is white. We're not going back to that, okay? But when you look at it, that person could be anybody because, shoot, please. That person could be anybody. And what you see on the table, which they always explain to you, is that you see all of the different suits because you have all of the tools necessary for what you need to do. AKA, Atem is somebody who thought that they had nothing or very little, but then realized that they had all that they needed and has everything, and therefore can create and manifest whatever they may want to in their purpose. You understand? And over the magician's head, you're going to see an infinity sign, the infinite mind. He is the one. So those are good ways that you're able to really understand, because it's not that that particular person is what the Most High or Atem looks like. It's that any person encompasses the spirit. And I'm sure when you I don't have the card in front of me, I'm just going off picture memory, but when you look around the outline of the magician or the person in the card, it is radiating light, because all of us hold spirit in us. Our bodies are just a vessel. We kind of live in like a glass bottle factory, and we're looking at a whole bunch of different glass bottles, and they're filled with water, but that water is just spirit. You get a good way to visualize Atem. When you see people around you, know that there is potential for light if their light isn't already shining bright. Here's how you can kind of visualize who Atem is. Atem is everything. Learn to watch the trees glow. Sit back and be a spectacle of God. You know, look up into the trees. Listen, hear the passion in the birds chirping and be like, oh, look at God just, doing what God do. In both the small and huge ways, that they could be in the middle of like the climax of their lives. And to me, all I'm hearing is tweet, tweet, tweet. There are fun ways to be a spectacle of God and to play in perspective too, because there's no need to take things so seriously. But let's talk about God's nature, right? Because one thing that I've noticed is that science truly is just an attempt to explain the physical manifestation of God's infinite laws, or God's nature or natural laws, Lord, that keep balance, And it's truly unfortunate because it's hard to use this language because they've taken the way that we've understood just self-regulation and have used it for like mass oppression. So it's hard to be like, yeah, discipline sound like the whip to me. But anyways, and that's just hailing, we all got to do. Don't act like I'm alone. Anyways, God has a paradoxical nature. Now, I've said this before, but it's because I took it from the nature's point. I'm looking at my notes. But let's really get into it. What does it mean for God to have a paradoxical nature? Like I have already said, it's really about perspective. God's nature is that of self-regulation. The reason why he self-regulates is because he was from the darkness. Even though he became aware of himself, my nigga had to make sure that he stayed aware. So because he had to stay aware, he had to create certain balances that would force his spirit to constantly have to go through reimaginings of his own awareness. Kind of like, Lord, do I really want to reference that? Kind of like using young energy to keep himself alive. Yikes. How like the hoodoo lady would be doing that extractive magic to them young childrens so that she can keep her youth for a little longer. Well, that's just because that's how the universe math be mathing, and she, that's all witches are. They just know the laws of the universe and they manipulate them. That's really all we do. When you manifest, then you just manipulate. So when you understand the paradoxical nature, you understand that all God is trying to do anyways, the only reason why he's creating is so that he can keep himself functioning as the mechanism that he is by constantly going through the death and rebirth cycle, but in small little fragments. So that means that our spirits are constantly being born and dying and being born and dying, and we're forgetting who we are to rediscover, to recreate, to learn this and learn that, and rediscover ourselves as Atem, but in small little fragments, so that our spirit can be returned once he feels that we've reached the proper level of maturity. So it's funny because the ancient Egyptians understand this as the many different gods who judge you at death, right? And it's the 42 gods who govern the 42 laws of my eye. After you sit and you confess all of your sins, there's never really an argument. It's not about you defending yourself. People always try to be like, oh, I'm gonna tell God that. No, it's not about that. It's about the fact that when you die, you are your spirit, you are the Most High. There's no ego left. Those different little splits of yourself that's created when you materialize for protection that happen in the brain, the physical part of the brain that has to find ways to split your spirit and suppress it. Yeah, the ego, it's gone. So you're going to be looking right at yourself and the 42 different ways that you've manifested in the past, aka your ancestors, aka your inner self, aka God still. It's all still Atem, but different manifestations of him. You're going to look at yourself, 42 different versions of yourself, and you're going to be like, I'm sorry that I did that to myself. I'm sorry, me. It's going to be you looking at yourself. And after you confess those different things, those gods go back. Really, it's Atem, but it's Ra, because Ra is who's your judge over our solar system. So they go back to Ra and they say, well, Ra, we could return this spirit, but this part of heaven, or that bright light space that is the Most High, this part of heaven, we tend to have, we need to make sure that they're good in this part of heaven, and that part of heaven, they're not going to be too good in this part of heaven. They're called districts, right? On this part of heaven, where we don't lie, they're going to have issues on the no lying part. You know what I'm saying? This part of heaven, where what that really means is Atem is self-regulating. How is he gonna return a spirit that essentially has a virus of darkness in it that might infest the inside of the Most High spirit and send the Most High into his own dark night of the soul? That's how we understand in spirit. Send the Most High into a dark night of the soul that might send him back into new. So it's important that it's not about you going to hell. It's about you being rematerialized in the material world so that your spirit itself can rediscover God, to know yourself, so that you truly are fully drenched in light when you're returned to God, so that you don't, ruin the freaking universe. But thankfully that's not on your back, because there are systems in place to regulate that. Because that would suck. Shout out to that. Shout out to the Most High's immune system. Anyways, the point of getting that is to see that when you're living life and you're having conflicts, these conflicts, especially when you're like, oh, it's squashing me, I don't know if I'm going to be able to survive, those type of things. They're conflicts that are put so that you can learn certain lessons. That doesn't mean that you deserve every last thing that ever happens to you. That's not the case. I will clear that up in future episodes, because I don't want to focus too much on smaller things. But that's not the case. It's just that a lot of the way you are positioned, a lot of the reasons why certain things are positioned in front of you that way, is because there are certain things that you need to learn so that you may be returned. So the material world, it is truly an illusion, and the way that you can overcome these illusions are to separate yourself and know yourself. A lot of the things that we have issues with are issues because of our lack of perspective, right? So you get real egotistical because you have a subconscious feeling of lack, but you can never lack if you are everything that's ever existed. And that is truly what you are. That is truly what you are. But God can't receive that soul back if you out here thinking that you God, aka you for real. Like that ain't how God can receive you. God can't take you in that way, because you're gonna mess him up, right? You gonna mess up God's pH balance, and he ain't really messing with that. So physical ideas are illusions, so it's not really to be focused on. But that also, that could mean when people are calling you ugly, you could ignore them because you a high spirit. But also, that really means that you may not even be ugly. These people are in your faces because they projecting things on you that ain't yours to keep. And that's really what it means by illusion. The reality of it is that you come from immense amount of beauty because you are of the light. Ain't no way you ugly. That's just not how it works. Thank God that you live off of calculation. You know what I'm saying? Your beauty has been confirmed and calculated. Ain't no worries about it. Ain't no ugly bone in your body. Ain't no ugly atom in your spirit. I already said this, but we all got the same mind as the Most High. So you can understand God, and that's why I use the tarot card. You can understand God through the things that you see around you. That's the reason why you're seeing them around you. Alright, God displays his wisdom through the conflicts around you. So don't be out here thinking that you gotta learn God from some special person who got it tucked away in some cave. That's the way that you limit yourself and you get in your way when you are God. How can you lack the information of your own history, the information of your own wisdom? It is constantly around you. It is your story still. Don't ever think that God is packed away somewhere or you need somebody else to access the Most High. If you think that somebody else has a clearer connection and has a more trusting spirit, and you feel like that bit of darkness of doubt that you have for yourself might get in the way of proper communication with your spirits, then that's when you tap into other diviners. But it's important to make sure that your diviner spirit is proper. That's another conversation. I need to not get in the way. Anyways, we're talking about God right now. All I'm saying is the root, you will always have access. There are a lot of people out here who feel like you don't have access to the Most High. And there are a lot of spiritual systems who feel that way too. And much respects to their roots. I can't say that they're any more or less valid than this one, or anyone, But it is in my firm belief that you can access all of spirit, the Most High spirit, at all times, because it is in you. It is what creates you. It is what you are. But let's get deeper into God's purpose, because when I say that you can understand the Most High's nature through yourself, I truly mean that. Because since the insemination, the creation, the explosion that was the creation of the Most High, he has been working. He has been creating. Like I said, in order to keep himself young, he has to both give birth to young things, have them mature, have them die, and consume them. So that means that God is constantly creating and destroying. He is constantly expanding and contracting. So God is constantly moving, therefore you are constantly moving. And science already lets you know that atoms are in a constant state of vibration. Those were some big ass fucking bugs. Holy shit. Oh no, those are birds. That makes more sense. Okay. Whew, I'm so sorry. Alright. So he uses the balance of extinction and renewal to display wisdom. It's not only what you see, but it's also about what you see in relation to extinction and what you see in relation to abundance, and how wisdom displays in the midst of that. And he creates just to show who he is and to teach lessons. So it's understood in our nature, we are meant to be a spectacle of these creations to consume that wisdom. So that is a part of our purpose in God's purpose. And I'm going to make a whole nother episode on that, because like I said, this stuff, it can go on forever. And he kind of teaches us that in his creation, he both spoke and then created simultaneously. So that teaches you about manifesting, and boom, like I also need to cough again at myself. But it's important to both say you're going to do something and do it at the same time. And in that very wisdom of how he creates, you learn that your blessings, your manifestations only move as quick as your intention. People might get from that story, the Most High spoke, especially when we talk about manifestation, right? So people understand that when you speak, that is the first way that you materialize your manifestation, so that can help you get what you're looking to manifest. Just as he spoke, he created, and that's an important part. It's important that the intention extends more than the speech. It also extends to the do, and that you must do and be intentional. I want to define wisdom. So wisdom is applied knowledge. So knowledge is the word, but wisdom doesn't exist until it's applied. That's why life exists, because life is the communion of mind and word. And when you apply the knowledge by using your mind, that is when you finally get that wisdom. And when that knowledge sets into the mind and is a wise mind, that's when that mind can return to the Most High, the most wise mind. I wanted to give you a little tidbit of what the next episode is going to be about, because I'm going to extend this. I just wanted to get out what God is, let people contemplate on it. Hopefully people can share what they feel they've understood God to be, how they've seen it, or if they see anything that is similar to what they've noticed or what their people believe. That'd be mad cool. But I also wanted to bring up the next episode. You know what I'm saying? The next episode is going to be about the zero. I brought up the one tarot card, and if you know about tarot, you know that there's a zero card. And I wanted to really get into that because especially when it comes to numerology, there's an understanding about 0 also having a meaning. And I wanted to get into what 0 was in relation to 1, because 0 is the new, but that kind of extends beyond that. It's kind of similar to the devil aspect that people understand, like whatever energy that might ever compete with the will of God, but that energy still being the same as God, because all is God still. Kind of like antimatter, how science understands antimatter. But that's what the next episode is going to be about. I really appreciate y'all rocking with me. Hopefully y'all like the show. If you do, please tell me what you like about it. Tell me what you like to see. Tell me what interests you, what you wonder if I want to talk about or whatever. Let's get into it. Let's get to know each other. Thank you for tuning in to Finding Atem, and I will see you in the next episode. Blessings to you all. We give thanks to the Most High, I and I, one and the same.